Hey, what's up? Hello. Welcome into Fantasy Filmball, the show where we turn movies into sports and sports into something we don't talk about here. My name is Matt.
And my name is Dylan. And today we have a very big topic because we are diving into our first acting predictions for the 2024 Oscar season. And Matt, at least I can speak for myself. I don't know what to do in any of these categories at the moment. At least for picture, I felt good about 6, 7 type movies and whatnot, but getting here to the acting categories, I don't feel confident even saying a winner in any category. Like last year, it's oh yeah, Austin Butler, cool, lock it in. Quan, yeah, I kind of feel good about that, but here, there's nothing. I know we're doing these a few months earlier than our first ones last year, but I don't know. I feel like I'm being too basic, but at the same time, not basic enough.
The thing I love about early predictions is that we really don't know what's going on at all, and that's exciting to me. It's very fun to make these early wild predictions and then see whether they flop or whether they come into being later on. And most of the things we say right now are going to end up being completely horribly wrong. But some won't. Some won't, and that's exciting. There are some things that we're going to say are going to happen right now that at the very end of the year we're going to look back at and go, oh, wow, we called that early. Or, oh, we had a feeling that would flop. We just had a feeling right there. Do we know anything? No, we don't know shit. Do we have a little bit of a hunch on some of these things? Yes, I think that's the exciting thing here. So, without further ado, let's just dive right into... I'm going to start off this week with Best Actress in a Leading Role. So, in my number one slot for Best Actress, I have Fantasia Barrino for The Color Purple. Fantasia is an American Idol. I don't know if she went to the finals, but she did extremely well. I have not watched American Idol since 2005, so I really have no idea. But Fantasia is a really fantastic singer, a fantastic performer, has been on Broadway. In fact, has been on Broadway in this role, which she is playing and reprising on screen in The Color Purple. It's the role of Celie, who many believe Whoopi Goldberg should have won the Oscar for in the original non-musical version in 1985. Whoopi Goldberg was kind of, I think, upset a little bit for the win there. I don't know too much about the politics of that awards race, but many look back and think that that role should have won an Oscar for Whoopi Goldberg. And in fact, this role has won 2 actresses Tonys for this. Now, Fantasia Barrino played the role on stage, but she did not originate it. There are clips of her online doing this performance. There is a show-stopping number at the end of Act 2. It's called I'm Here, and you can find that clip of Fantasia singing that song, and I dare you, watch that clip. Tell me right now that's not an Oscar clip. Plus, there's narrative here. I mean, Fantasia is going to deliver a crazy good performance. There's also the narrative of we've just rewarded the second POC woman to ever win an Oscar for Best Actress. That is 2 in the entire 95-year history, non-white women to win Best Actress. And I think that there's going to be a narrative to continue that. Plus, I just have a feeling The Color Purple is going to be a movie that is going to, at the end of the year, feel good to vote for. I have a feeling this cast is going to be warmly embraced. There are so many characters in this that are going to get awards buzz. I can see up to 4 acting nominations for this film. It is a likely SAG Ensemble winner, and Fantasia is at the heart of it all. And if the movie does well, it's because of Fantasia. And if Fantasia does well, it's because the movie is capturing the hearts of people.
My biggest scare with this, at least, is just the past few years, the Academy has not really seemed to be very warm to musicals. Yes, West Side Story did get into Best Picture, but I would say that movie overall underperformed based on where we thought. Rachel Zegler missed out on actress. It missed out on both supporting actor candidates. It did miss out on that SAG Ensemble nomination. And I don't know. I want Color Purple to do well. I'm just a little scared. And then you add on top of that, Warner Brothers has so much going out there. But I think that everything you said can easily happen. That's where the fun of predicting in March for an award show that's almost a year away is hey, we have no real clue what is going to happen. So she's in my top 3 right now, but I just don't have her at number 1.
But what other musicals should have gotten into Best Picture in the last 10 years? Because, I mean, there was West Side Story, which did very well. Of course, yes, it underperformed a little bit. It didn't get it only ended up with the one acting nomination when people thought it might get Mike Faced in there, when people thought Rita Moreno might get in there. I don't think people ever thought Rachel Zegler would make it in because that was a role. You did? Why? That was a role that hadn't even gotten Natalie Wood an Oscar nomination.
That year was so weak that I felt like she could get in, and then, I mean, she won an early precursor. She had the Globe. Stuff was looking good. Like, at the end of the day, like, on nomination morning, I wasn't expecting her, but throughout the whole award season, I was.
Fair enough. Maria's just a role that I think she's a bit of a bland role that the rest of the story happens around. Her and Tony are the ones that are, like, the least praised in any performance of West Side Story, because everything, the interesting part of West Side Story happens around those two characters. But other than that, I mean, the last movie musical that I can think that did get kind of snubbed and was pretty close to the conversation was probably Mary Poppins Returns. But that was lighthearted. That was very fun, very breezy. The Color Purple is a film that I think is going to move people really deeply. It's a drama, right? It's based on an established show that we know is good. It's coming from a director who works with Beyonce frequently, who is a very visually talented filmmaker and storyteller. So I don't know. I have high hopes for this movie. And I can even see a path for Best Picture for Color Purple. Actually, it might be my prediction at this point.
So
and
I see you gone back to it. Nice.
People might say that, yeah, the Academy doesn't like musicals. They didn't give it to La La Land. They didn't give it to West Side, whatever, right? It doesn't matter that they haven't given a musical Best Picture since 2002. The only constant that we've had every single year for what they award Best Picture is that it's different from anything else that they've awarded Best Picture before. Mm-hmm. That is the only constant that we have, right?
So
we can't say what people like for Best Picture anymore. It's just, it has to be different from what they've done before.
So you have Fantasia at number 1, but who's your number 2 and 3 and 4? And
You're right. This is not a picture episode. This is an actress episode right now. So number 2, I have Annette Bening for Niad. This might come back to bite me because there's a chance that Niad ends up being a bit of a by-the-books biopic, could be buried. But the film is directed by Oscar winners Jimmy Chin and Elizabeth Chai Vesarhelyi, who directed Free Solo, who directed The Rescue, and this is their debut narrative film. Now, why do I have confidence in this? Why is this my number 2 slot? Well, we know the Academy loves a biopic. They love something inspirational. These filmmakers are very exciting. This is their debut narrative feature. It kind of treads similar territory to what they did in Free Solo that was so exciting. It focuses on someone doing an amazing feat of athleticism. And Annette Bening is kind of overdue. She's got a good narrative going for her. If this film is good, and I can already see in my brain, in my mind hole, I can already see, that was weird and gross, but I'm going to go with it. I can already see in my mind that the Free Solo filmmakers are going to capture the shit out of this voyage from Cuba to Florida. It's going to look fucking fantastic. And I think that could propel her.
The more you described it there, it kind of sounds like it could be like a Bill Nye type, like, awards run where, like, hey, it's just one acting performance and maybe something else comes along with it, whether that is a screenplay or maybe cinematography like you're talking about with some very interesting visuals, but maybe not a bigger overall contender, but a very solid in their, like, safe type acting nomination.
I guess the thing is that at this point, it's still extremely unclear what Netflix's priority is. And we know from last year, Netflix could switch their priorities, right? We thought at the beginning of the year it was going to be Bardo. And then it looked like it was going to be Glass Onion. And then, I guess it was All Quiet. So we don't really know what their priority is. Could it be Rustin? Could it be Maestro? It's not Maestro. It's not Maestro. It's not Maestro. I am actually kind of bouncing between, I think Netflix's priority is either going to be Niad or it's going to be El Conde, the Count from Chile. So those are the two that I'm like, okay, this feels like it's going to be Netflix's big contender. This one feels like it's one that's going to be, it's going to play at TIFF. It's going to be like all this buzz around, oh my god, Annette Bening's delivering the best performance of her career. This is fucking fantastic. Check this out. This is crazy. But at number 3, I have Natalie Portman in May, December. Now, this is a really fascinating role. It's a really interesting character study. May December is Todd Haynes' new movie. It follows a tabloid romance that about 30 years ago had happened between an older woman and a teenage boy. And now it's 30 years later, and the romance between the young boy and the older woman has now just carried on. They're married, they have kids, and Natalie Portman plays an actress who is coming into the town to stay with this couple and study them because she's going to be playing the older woman in a movie. I've read the script of this movie. It is a very, very good script. And Natalie Portman has, she has some really fascinating scenes. There's one scene between her and Charles Melton's character that I'm not going to spoil, but the arc in this scene, it's like a 10-page long sequence where it just goes from one thing to the other and delves up to trauma, and oh my god, it's fantastic. And if they knock it out of the park, which they will because it's Natalie Portman, and I'm not too familiar with Charles Melton, but it's Natalie Portman. Natalie Portman's going to crush this role. So that's why I've got Natalie Portman at number 3.
She seems someone who's very safe. When competitive, I'm not sure about it. Since last episode, I'm a little lower in May December now. The whole fact that it still does not have a distributor scares me a little bit. So I kind of moved it down across the board. It moved down in picture, it moved down in director, it moved down for Portman. She was my number 2 now. She's at number 3, 4. But like you said, very meaty role where she's a great actress and she's probably going to deliver some of her career best work here.
It does worry me that May December doesn't have a distributor yet. It definitely does. Let's say if it's July and there's still no distributor, I'm worried. But that said, there have been many excellent movies that have gone even into TIFF with no distributor. One that I remember is I, Tonya. I, Tonya did not have a distributor until after TIFF, and then that movie went on to be nominated for 3 Oscars and to win 1. At number 4, I have Jessica Lange in Long Day's Journey into Night. Now, Long Day's Journey into Night is a new adaptation of Eugene O'Neill's classic play, which is hailed as one of the greatest works in American theater. Jessica Lange has played this role before. She played it, I believe, in 2003 and in 2016, and in 2016, she won the Tony Award for Best Actress in a Leading Role for this performance. And this is giving me the same kind of vibes as Denzel Washington in Fences, who played the role on stage, was highly acclaimed, and then went on to be Oscar nominated for the same role. This used to happen a lot more, where someone would play a role on stage and then go on to get Oscar nominated or even win for it. In the film adaptation. It happened with My Fair Lady, with The King and I, with Cyrano de Bergerac. There have been so many theatrical adaptations that have done this. Nowadays, there's not as many films that are adapted from the stage, so we don't see that as often, but Jessica Lange in this is really giving me we could award her for this role that she's become very famous for. This could be the definitive version of this play done on screen, and she could be absolutely fantastic in this. That said, the movie's directed by someone that has not really directed films before. He's a theater director who is coming in to do this, but the cast is giving me some hope. I think Jessica Lange, Ed Harris, Ben Foster are all gonna kill it in this movie. The question is, does the direction support them in the way that it should, or does it let them down just a little bit?
Yeah, fair enough. This is one that I don't have on my list at the moment, so I'm a little bit lower. Haven't even heard about this movie until you just mentioned it now, so it's something that I definitely need to look at, because I'll let you do your number 5, and then I can run off some names who I have in my 5 at the moment who are not in yours.
Of course, and after this, I'll kind of go quickly through my other contenders. But at number 5 for me, I have Greta Lee in Past Lives. Now, I'm starting to get a little bit worried about Past Lives because, like I said before, the only thing that is consistent with Best Picture winners this century has been that they're completely inconsistent. They don't do the same thing over and over again. And are they going to follow up a little indie darling with another indie darling right away? Are they going to give A24 2 awards in a row for films that, not that similar, but at the same time, they're the little critic's darling, they're the little indie movie that's going to capture the hearts and minds. But that said, I do have Greta Lee in here. I still think Past Lives is, if not number 1, it is number 2 or 3 at the moment. We know it's great. We know it's going to top end-of-year lists. And Greta Lee is going to come along with that package. At least I sure hope that she is. Now, that said, she is at number 5 because I can see maybe the role might be too subdued. Maybe the film will underperform. Maybe she will get dragged down a little bit. But right now, I say the ceiling for Past Lives is Moonlight. It could be Moonlight. Or the floor, I think, is Call Me By Your Name. I've seen some people say Past Lives could be The Farewell. I disagree with that. The reviews are already stronger. But overall, I do think it could be Call Me By Your Name. But that said, Greta Lee would probably be Timothée Chalamet in that case.
Yeah, that's how I kind of see Past Lives at the moment. I do have that number 1 for picture, but that's kind of just because of sight unseen. We don't know what else is out there. And usually when a movie's your number 1 or number 2 highest rated movie of the year, it's going to make it into picture. She would come along with it. I currently have her as my runner-up in Best Actress just because of how strong that parallel would be with the picture nomination, with the actress nomination. However, my winner for Best Actress is not in your top 5. And I know we're a little bit different with this movie at the moment, but
I want you to stop me actually when I get to it, okay? Because I'm going to go down my list and you tell me when I hit your number 1.
Well, I don't think we'll have to go far.
No? Okay, number 6, I've got Emma Stone.
That's it.
It's Emma Stone? Why do you have Emma Stone at number 1?
I have Poor Things performing very well this year. I know there's
Babylon
controversy or whatnot.
It's gonna offend people.
I don't think it's gonna be Babylon. I think it's gonna perform not to win in the sense of everything everywhere, but people at the beginning of last year said, "Oh, everything everywhere's gonna be too weird, it's gonna be too out there," and I think Poor Things is gonna do the same thing. It's gonna have a very nice trajectory. It's going to have a very strong shot and adaptive screenplay that's going to carry over to Emma Stone giving another amazing leading turn. This can be like the little follow-up, like, hey, you won before, welcome back. I don't know if she's going to win, but I don't know really what else to put here. Like, yeah, maybe I could do Fantasia, maybe I could do Portman, Lee, Stone. I don't know. This is kind of just a gut feeling at the moment where I have Poor Things performing very well at the moment just because it is Searchlight's biggest push. We've seen Searchlight do well when they, at least at the moment, I feel like it is.
I still think it's Strangers. I do. I really think it's Strangers. But, I mean, it could be Poor Things. But that said, okay, I think Poor Things is very different from Everything Ever All at Once. Because Everything Ever All at Once, yes, it was weird, but it was wholesome weird. Poor Things is Babylon weird. It's a movie about a woman who has a child's brain inserted into her head. But then it becomes like a weird... Like, there's a lot of, like, sexual elements that are going to make people very uncomfortable with the fact that it's Emma Stone playing someone with the brain of a child, going through all these, like, weird... It's like a sexual Frankenstein. It doesn't sound very, like... It sounds like it's going to piss some people off, right? The way that Babylon pissed some people.
That's our big takeaway from last year. That's our big takeaway from last season's awards is, hey, the traditional Academy movies aren't the traditional ones anymore. Maybe it does perform like a Babylon where it does piss a lot of people off, but it could also be on the flip side where a lot of people are just very into it. But like we've mentioned, I think a few times already, we're super early. No one really knows. And that's just something where I'm kind of riding that early wave. Like, if I'm right, I'm right. And if not, this can be the first contender on our biggest L's of the year next year list.
That's the thing. There is no such thing as an Academy movie anymore, right? You can be as weird as you want, but you can't piss people off, right? Mm-hmm. And that's what Babylon did. Babylon pissed people off. Yes, it was weird, it was big, it did crazy things, but people were disgusted by Babylon. And I'm worried that Poor Things might kind of disgust people in a similar way. So, the next ones, here are the rest of my contenders. I'm not going to spend too long on each of them. I've got Kaylee Spaney in Priscilla. Regina King in Shirley. I've heard that Shirley is not good, but Regina King is still okay, and she's probably going to pick up, like, a few nominations from like weird bodies. Yeah, Empire of Light. I think more Jennifer Hudson in Respect, where that was like everyone kind of knew that wasn't a thing, it wasn't happening, but she still picked up a few things. She got the SAG nomination, she picked up like the Satellite Award nomination. That's what I'm feeling with Regina King and Shirley. Then I've got Margot Robbie in Barbie. I don't buy it. I don't buy Barbie. Saoirse Ronan in Blitz. And just to rattle off a few other contenders, Julia Louis-Dreyfus in You Hurt My Feelings, Sandra Hüller in Zone of Interest, Vanessa Kirby in Napoleon, and Julianne Moore in Stone Mattress.
So the other one that I have in my top 5 would be Saoirse Ronan and Blitz. However, Blitz is something I'm just really not sure what to do with because I feel like if it does come out this year, it's a player, it's a contender. But I also don't see Apple wanting to put out 2 big contenders in the same year.
I actually disagree. I think if it comes out this year, it's not a contender. Because I think Apple, unless Killers of the Flower Moon is not their main push, if Blitz is really good, they're going to hang on to it until they have a year where it could be their number one.
From your actress line that you said before, I agree for the most part. Like, Barrero's my number 3, Lee's my number 2, Portman's my number 4, and then we just have a different 1 and 5.
Yeah.
So, moving things over into the leading actor category, this is a category I normally like to pride myself on being able to be like, hey, this is your winner months out in advance. I had like a 3-year streak that ended when Austin Butler lost to Brendan Fraser for The Whale. So this year, I got to get back on track. However, I don't know what to put at number 1. So if you watched our Best Picture predictions last week, I had Rustin in for Best Picture, and that's because I have Coleman Domingo at my number 1 slot. Do I feel great about this? No, but I don't have a very solid alternative at the moment. I have someone who I feel kind of good about, just I need to be sure that movie's coming out before I make that switch. So Domingo's at my number 1 for Rustin. A lot of people love him. I love him. I feel like he has a lot of goodwill in the industry where that can very much hide in this campaign of Rustin's not the greatest movie in the world, like some people have possibly said it might not be, but this is one where if Netflix gives it the campaign, it's going to do something. Netflix showed us this year, if they try, something's going to happen. So it doesn't matter to the degree of how popular or how successful a movie is. If Netflix has the money behind it, kind of like Apple and some other categories, it's going to pay off. And then is where we get to just a hodgepodge of actors I don't really know what to do about. But before I dive into those, what do you feel about Domingo at my number 1 right now?
I've had Domingo at my number 1 for ages. Even last year when Rustin was supposed to come out, I was like, yeah, I think Coleman Domingo is probably going to win, and that's why I've got Rustin in Best Picture. That said, Rustin's been pushed back multiple times, and it's not because Netflix is super confident in it. It's because they don't really know what to do with it seems. Right? Like, I don't know. There's some things about this movie that just scare me a little bit. That make me a little bit nervous. Right? I just recently took Rustin out of my 10 for Best Picture because I don't believe that Netflix is going to get to the end of the year and go, yeah, I think Rustin is our best performer. Rustin is the movie that people are passionate about. Rustin is the movie that people are talking about. I just don't see that happening. So, I don't know, man. I don't know. But Coleman Domingo, if Rustin is good, he's going to be fucking fantastic in this role.
I think regardless of Rustin's quality, Domingo's going to be someone who's going to be in the race all year. He could be someone like Hugh Jackman who does end up missing out at the end of the day, but I feel like he's very safe for a nomination at this moment. After that, like I mentioned, is where I don't really know what to do. So playing it safe, I have DiCaprio at number 2 for Killers of the Flower Moon. I've seen some people say maybe he's supporting, but I think he's DiCaprio. He's going lead, and Killers is Apple's main push, and I feel like that's good enough to get him to number 2, and I'm sure he's great in the role. Here's where I think I'm going to take my biggest risk yet. This is a movie where I think if it does come out and it has good enough reviews, it could sneak into picture and it could win actor. But that is the untitled Bob Marley biopic with Kingsley Ben-Adir in the lead.
I want to dance with somebody. I want to dance with somebody.
That's probably what this is. But I took the bait last year for that movie, and looks like I'm going to take the bait again this year with the Bob Marley biopic. It comes right now. The slated release date is that optimal, limited, and late 2023, and wide early 2024. Like what The Whale had this year. I know I'm making a lot of Whale comparisons, but I don't know. This is another just actor who's built up a lot of buzz, a lot of goodwill in the industry, and he's portraying someone very iconic. I know that we just saw last year playing a musical icon does not guarantee a win, but who knows? This is probably the complete opposite side of Elvis, where it's not so in your face, and it's probably going to be a much more reserved and a much more dramatic take on an iconic figure.
Well, it's directed by Ronaldo Marcus Green, who just did King Richard, but he also just did Joe Bell.
Like I said, this is one where I don't really know what to do with it. In my list that I'm looking in front of right now, I have it at 6, but I wanted to be a little bit bold and throw it up in there in my top 5. Because at number 5,
you might as well.
I do have Cillian Murphy for Oppenheimer. As I mentioned last episode, I think this movie's for real, and if it's for real, he would have to come along with it, and that means that Paul Giamatti does miss out for the holdovers. But
that's hilarious because
sorry,
in my actress category, your number 1 is my number 6. And in actor, my number 1 is your number 6.
Hey, that's just the fun of how this all plays out. Because, yeah, I have Giamatti out at the moment. But if the Bob Marley biopic is not actually this year, there you go. Slides up, number 5. I just have a I just don't really know what to do with that movie because Alexander Payne is someone who the Academy's loved and also hasn't really cared for in the past. And will that carry over to this movie? Who really knows?
This is not downsizing. You know, this is a movie that, for one thing, he didn't write this script. It is not written by him. He might have adapted it a little bit. But this already has positive buzz. It has screened at TIFF last year to buyers with extremely, extremely good buzz around it. Focus Features actually, they bought it for $30 million, and they had a choice whether to rush it into release this year, but then they didn't want to compete with Tar. And so they pushed it to this year, and it's their focus. It's Focus Features' focus. So this one's going to be big. Paul Giamatti has been loved, and yet he really hasn't been embraced by the Academy. I think he only has one nomination. This is going to be, I think he's going to be doing a role that kind of shows what he's always done, but in a new sort of way. So that's my argument for Paul Giamatti, number one. He's overdue, and he's going to fucking kill it. This is like his wheelhouse.
Some other names who I don't have up in my top 5 that are, and that like, hey, maybe they're here. You have everyone's favorite person to dunk on right now, Bradley Cooper for Maestro. I know there's test screenings out there for this movie that say it's not the best. Then you have Yuteo from Past Lives. As I mentioned, I have this in pictures, so I think he should probably come along with it. Just, is he a big enough name to carry over above some of the bigger names? But if this movie's as beloved as it has seemed so far, once it comes out in wide release, who knows, easily slides up here. And then some more longer shots, but I do want to just say, like, hey, if this movie catches on, they could come along. That's Adam Driver for Ferrari. Depending on how this release goes, this could be his return. We know the Academy loves him, and this is a chance to reward him. Maybe not with a win, but another nomination, and he can become the next, Leo, who just keeps getting nominated, but just can't seem to win or get that winning role. And lastly, the last person I want to mention before I hand it back over to you, just mention some various other names, is there's this little movie that, had its premiere the other day at South by Southwest and got rave reviews, and that is Air. And if it's for real, Matt Damon probably has to come along with it. Do I think it's for real? No, but it has my attention enough to be at my number 10 slot.
Yeah, it could be the early movie that does well, but that said, this seems like the movie that everyone's going to go, yeah, that's a 7 out of 10. That was pretty good. I've read the script for Air. You're going to hear me say that a lot on this show this season. I've read the script for Air. It's okay. It's all right. It's fun. It's good. It's breezy. It's a movie about basketball that's entirely set in boardrooms. And it's fun. The dialogue's solid, and Matt Damon's going to do a good job. It's given me 13 lives. Amazon dropping a movie early in the year being like, we think that this is going to be huge. We're going to push it for awards. No, they're not.
That is probably the case. And I know I just said that was the last name, but just to throw one more out there, we just talked about Apple TV having too much on their plate. Napoleon also comes out this year. Joaquin Phoenix. Maybe if this movie's good, but Ridley Scott, you never really know. I hope it's good. I like Ridley Scott when he makes good movies, and even when they're not good movies, they're sometimes kind of fun. And I'm just excited for Napoleon. So I think this could be something where some critics groups may go for it, but overall, if it's coming out this year, it's probably not performing very well.
Yeah, and that's what I feel is like. I think it's just going to be second horse to Killers all year long. All right, I've got like 7 here that you didn't have on your list, so I'm just going to rattle these off. Andrew Scott in The Strangers. But Andrew Haig has directed actors 2 nominations before. He did it with Charlotte Rampling in 45 Years. And Strangers seems like, it's going to hit Venice. It's going to be Searchlight's, I think, main push. And it seems like a haunting story that's going to make people cry. And Andrew Scott is going to be the reason. Paul Mescal actually recently, in an interview, gave a shout-out to Andrew Scott and said his performance is spectacular in Strangers. He does so well in this. So we could see Hot Priest get that nomination. You don't have Barry Keoghan in Saltburn on your list. Now, I also don't have a lot of faith in Saltburn. Emerald Fennell's follow-up, I just don't think it's going to perform as well. Maybe less The Sun, and maybe more If Beale Street Could Talk, where it's still good and still underperforms. I mentioned Jessica Lange in Long Day's Journey into Night. Gotta mention Ed Harris, Long Day's Journey into Night. This is also a role that has won actors Tony Awards. It is a big, powerful role, and Ed Harris is a great actor who is quite underappreciated, I think. Then, we gotta mention Timothée Chalamet in Wonka. This isn't happening, but what if it does?
If it goes next year, maybe, but this year, as I've said in other episodes, Warner Brothers has too much.
But I think it's still worth mentioning. Then, just to toss it out there, Andre Holland in The Actor. This is a role that was supposed to be Ryan Gosling. It's the newest film from Duke Johnson, who did Moral Oral and Anomalisa. He's the co-director that wasn't Charlie Kaufman on Anomalisa. But yeah, this is his live-action debut, and Andre Holland is in it, and I think he's a pretty underappreciated actor at this point. Then we have to mention Harrison Ford. Tom Cruise almost broke in last year. Harrison Ford, who knows, man? It could happen too. I don't think so, but it's still worth mentioning as a possibility. And finally, Christian Friedel in Zone of Interest. He plays an SS captain in this movie, and it could be another critic's push. But of those, I think the only ones that I have in my top 5 at this point would be Andrew Scott.
Who knows? Maybe in like another few weeks, I may switch over to Strangers for Searchlight, but I'm still rocking Poor Things. But
I'm gonna keep pushing you on it.
Now let's dive into supporting actor, which will be to you. Just one thing I want to say before you dive in is, on the topic of Poor Things, you better not have Willem Dafoe in your top 5, because he's not the Oscar nominee from Poor Things. It's someone else.
Yeah, that's actually a really good point, because I have had him in the past. That said, he's not in my top 5. I think I only have Poor Things in like production design and maybe cinematography and maybe costumes. So my supporting actor list, I'm going to start off at number 1 with Charles Melton in May-December. Charles Melton, who's this? I don't know if I've ever seen him in a film. It's not a name that is familiar to me, but I think it's one that we are going to know by the end of the year. Like I said, this script is fucking juicy. And there's about like a 15 to 20 page sequence near the end of this script where Charles Melton goes from a scene with Natalie Portman, which lasts for like 10 to 12 pages, and then the follow-up scene is a scene between Charles Melton and Julianne Moore, where, again, these characters are just fucking giving it to each other. This role, if he does it well, will be an Oscar nomination and potentially a win. Frankly, the only person I feel confident about in this category, because I've got a bunch of others that I'm like, oh, that could happen, or it could not happen.
Well, I would like to say maybe I know Charles Melton better than you, because he was in Bad Boys for Life.
Oh, I haven't seen Bad Boys for Life, so you definitely do know Charles Melton better. How was he in Bad Boys for Life?
I couldn't tell you. I googled his name and looked at his credits. I was like, wow, he was in Bad Boys for Life. He was in the FBI gang, for people who out there who have seen it. He was in their little like search party. Not a big role. Small role, but he's in Bad Boys for Life. So people, when you see the movie, you'd be like, oh, that guy.
And he has an enormous role in this. This is the type of role that's going to be put in supporting, and people are going to go, that's a lead role. But they're going to rock with him in supporting, because I think that they can get away with it. I think that they can say Natalie Portman is lead, and these two characters are supporting, Julianne Moore and Charles Melton. So number 2, actually, I'll just go 2 and 3 together. Jesse Plemons in Killers of the Flower Moon and Robert De Niro in Killers of the Flower Moon. Every year, there's a double nomination. Every year. This year, we had 2 double nominations from Everything Ever All at Once in Supporting Actress and Banshees in Supporting Actor. Killers of the Flower Moon is this year's double acting nomination. I've been predicting this movie to kind of underperform across the board, but that said, Jesse Plemons and Robert De Niro are both going to get in here. I think through the year, people are going to go, oh, it's just going to be Jesse Plemons. And then Robert De Niro is going to sneak in at the last moment. So it's either going to be a Paul Dano situation where Plemons is left out and De Niro gets in, or they both get in. So why do I have confidence in both of these? Well, Jesse Plemons plays an FBI agent in this movie. He kind of plays the good guy in the story, although there are very few good guys in this story, because he's still a bit of a racist. His character is quite prejudiced against indigenous peoples. The story kind of follows him as he's an anti-hero FBI agent trying to solve some murders and trying to understand how this has been swept under the rug by local law enforcement. And Robert De Niro plays quite a menacing role. I would say it's a villain, and that does not spoil too much about it, but it's a villainous role, and it is going to be quite menacing if he does it right, which he will, because he's Robert fucking De Niro. From here, I'm kind of lost. I don't really know where to go with this. So I guess at number 4, I'm going to put in Corey Hawkins in The Color Purple. Corey Hawkins plays Shug in The Color Purple. This is a role that has been nominated on Broadway. This is a role that has been very lauded, very highly in the past. And I do think that Corey Hawkins has an Oscar nomination in him. Number 5, I've got Ryan Gosling in Barbie. I've been talking shit on Barbie all along. I don't want to say talking shit because I think this movie's going to be fantastic. It's one of my most anticipated of the year. But I'm going to keep saying this over and over and over all year long. Older male voters will not watch Barbie. Even some younger male voters will not watch Barbie. And a lot of the male voters that do watch Barbie will watch it in a sort of hate watch way. And they'll go, oh, this is either so bad it's good, or Barbie was a piece of shit. No matter how good this movie is, there will be snobby, pretentious guys trying to knock it down a peg. So when I'm predicting Barbie in any categories, I have to think, what is the demographic of that branch? And the acting branch might not be as prejudiced against Barbie. So I'm just going to go for it and say Ryan Gosling. I hear he's fantastic in this role. People love Ryan Gosling. And I think even some of the men that are against this movie might still feel pretty good about Ryan Gosling in it. Because he's Ryan Gosling. It's literally me.
Yeah, I mean, I see the point there, but I guess, at least to me, I feel like the acting branch is the most behind in terms of inclusiveness. And at least the last few years. So I feel like they would be the last place if you're going to, like, if you're coming from the angle of people aren't going to give Barbie the time of day. I feel like the acting branch would be the last people to give Barbie the time of day. But I guess if they were, it would be Gosling, just because that makes some sense. However, I don't have Gosling at the moment, but I would love to be proven wrong. I can't wait for Barbie as well. It's one of my most anticipated for the year as well. I have pretty much the same top 5, just you take out Gosling and you take out Hawkins. And then I would put in, and this comes to our disparaging takes on Poor Things, but I have Rami Youssef in. From what I've seen, he is the male lead, so it's another one like how you mentioned for May December. Probably should be in lead, but could be campaign and supporting. And then I also have Paul Dano getting in for Dumb Money. The trend of Paul Dano getting snubbed has to end eventually. Why not be this year?
That's true. I did forget about Dumb Money. I might have also put in some of the other supporting cast, like Seth Rogen, or like not Pete Davidson, but Sebastian Stan, maybe. You know, I think that there's a lot of really strong contenders from Dumb Money. I think that the question is, we don't know who is going to be the strongest contender. That said, I wonder if Paul Dano might be playing. I'm going to show myself here. I was invested in GameStop when that all happened. I wonder if Paul Dano is going to be playing the guy at the head of all of it. Roaring Kitty, I think was his name or whatever, because I can see the similarities. I can also see the similarities with Sebastian Stan. One of them is going to be playing him, and whoever plays him, I think, might be a supporting contender, but I don't know who's going to play him, or if he's even included in the movie. He should be, because that was like kind of the center of the whole thing. But some other people who missed my list here, Glyn Turman in Rustin. I don't have a lot of faith in Rustin at this point, but Glyn Turman is a fantastic actor and could kind of come along with that if it were to be a big movie and if Coleman Domingo were to be in Best Actor. John Magaro in Past Lives. He's not going to be the biggest part of this movie, but still, if Past Lives has a ton of passion, he could get in. Ben Foster, Long Day's Journey into Night. Yet another award-winning role in Long Day's Journey into Night. And again, it all depends, is this movie big? You mentioned Rami Youssef in Poor Things. I've heard some stuff about Mark Ruffalo's character in Poor Things, but again, we need to read this book to figure out what the hell's going on. Jamie Bell in Strangers. Now, Jamie Bell plays Andrew Scott's character's father in this movie. So I don't know. It could be a thing if this movie's a thing. And then just got to mention some other ones quickly. Austin Butler, Dune Part 2. That's going to be a role where he's just fucking going for it. I don't see Dune getting any acting nominations, but if it does, it's probably Austin Butler. As well, Jacob Elordi in Priscilla. This is assuming that Elvis is not a leading role in this, but we could see Jacob Elordi get this nomination as a contrast to Austin Butler last year. But what do you think about any of that? Do you have anyone else to add here?
I mean, I would say right now, if Jacob Elordi gets an Oscar nomination, I will hold the biggest L in the world, because he'll get nowhere close to an Oscar nomination. To add other people, Downey Jr. and Oppenheimer, if the movie's for real, he seems like he has a pretty role, and Downey Jr. is someone who a lot of people like, and maybe it's a way like, hey, we love this movie, we love this actor, let's get him in here. And yeah, that's pretty much it. I've mentioned last episode about Firebrand, the adaptation of The Queen's Gambit being made into a movie. Don't know how big this movie's going to be, but maybe Jude Law can get some love and supporting actor, Alicia Vikander and lead actress. This is more of a hope diction because I doubt this movie's anything, but it did get delayed, so it now can premiere at a festival, and that's Challengers, Mike Face maybe in supporting actor, but again, probably not going to happen.
But let's wrap it up. I want to hear from you about your supporting actress lineup, and then we're done with our acting categories for at least a month, and we can take a breath because, god damn it, this is hard.
Supporting actress is the one that I feel like is the least hard because everyone's saying Lily Gladstone for Kills of the Flower Moon, but guess what? Watch her go lead like Michelle Williams and just mess up everyone's predictions. I feel like that's what's going to happen, but until that happens, I have her winning. After that, I have both Color Purple ladies of Taraji P. Henson and Daniela Brooks. Then I have Julianne Moore for May December, as I've mentioned before. I'm moving this movie down in every category just because I want to see it get a distributor so I know it's actually a movie coming out. And then at my number 5 spot, I guess for the moment I have Davine Joy Randolph for The Holdovers. But if I don't have Giamatti in, I feel weird having her in. So I guess they kind of have to like both be in or both be out. But I'm going to leave her in for the moment. And yeah, I feel good about this 5. But also the fact that I feel good probably means this is not going to be our 5.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think I actually have almost the exact same top 5 as you. But I would swap out Danielle Brooks for The Color Purple. I think I only have, I just have Taraji P. Henson in. But Danielle Brooks is playing the role that has gotten the awards nominations in the past, so.
This is my double nominee in a category.
My number 5 would be your next in line, and that's Isabella Rossellini for La Chimera.
What I feel like would be my replacement if I take out Randolph, but also looking to last year, if we're saying La Chimera is this year's Triangle of Sadness, Dolly De Leon didn't make it in, so maybe she can't make it in either, but also Dolly was probably number 6, so I don't know, using the exact one-to-one comparisons, that's where I find this spot right here.
But honestly, I like your list at this point. This feels about as right as we could get, especially because we don't know shit about a lot of these movies. And we don't know who's got the big roles and who's got the important roles and who's going to have the breakout narratives.
I would like to say for Color Purple, while I do have them two being the ones that get in, I would not be surprised if we see someone who just has like 1 or 2 scenes just have such a powerful musical number to rise themselves into this category. Who could that be? I don't really know.
I know who you think that could be. I know who you think that could be. You think it's Halle Bailey.
It could, but it could be a lot of other people too. I have to admit, I've never seen any adaptation of Color Purple, so I have no basis to go off of anything. But there's been times like that with musicals in the past, where like someone who just has one show-stopping scene, Anne Hathaway and Les Mis, can just come up and get all of the notoriety, while someone who's in the movie for a lot longer maybe does not get as much. But some other names to continue in this list for supporting actress, we mentioned Air. Viola Davis could be here, but probably not.
Probably not.
Penelope Cruz for Ferrari, just like Adam Driver, someone who the Academy does like, but also a movie I don't know if they'll touch. And then I would say, to contract you a little bit, Austin Butler's not the most likely for Dune Part 2. I would say it's Zendaya. But that is also just, I have not read the Dune book, but from what a lot of people say, she's a lot more prominent in Part 2. She's someone who I feel like maybe isn't overdue, but a lot of people would say is overdue, and a very big rising star, and this could just be a very, like, one of those, like, they're clearly number 5 or number 4, but they still break their way in.
I think the only person that's not on your list that I'd recommend considering would be Tilda Swinton in The Killer. Do I believe this is happening? No. Do I believe that The Killer is going to be an Oscar movie? No. it seems like just it's an action movie, which happens to be done by David Fincher. It's not a David Fincher drama. It's not Mank. It's not The Social Network. It's not even Gone Girl.
It's Girl with a Dragon Tattoo.
I don't even think it's that. I think it's like it's possible.
Well, I just
it gets
like
some
the
text.
style.
Yeah. In terms of style, yes, Girl with the Dragon Tattoo. But I don't know, man. But Tilda Swinton seems like someone who could end up getting nominated for that. I don't know anything about her role. This category, like I said, is giving me nightmares right now, but soon it won't, because we will soon know a lot more about a lot of these movies, and we'll know who the real players are, who is going in what category, is Lily Gladstone lead or supporting. We'll know all these questions soon enough, but for now, this is the fun part of the season where we're just walking around in the dark with our arms out and trying to figure out who goes where and who is a bigger performance in each movie than other people. So I don't know. It's an exciting time. I really like this part of the season.
It is. I'm very excited to dive more into this upcoming Oscar season, because I feel like this is kind of the most scared part of the season, because you don't know what anything is really going to do. I'm super not confident in anything that I said today. So if you made it this far in the video, definitely drop your comments down below. Let us know some of your bold predictions, because I don't feel great about any of mine.
Tell us if we've missed any big performances. I know one that I missed is that I wanted to make note of. There's Netflix's movie that I think might be their push, is a Chilean movie directed by Pablo Larraín, who did Jackie and Spencer, and it's called The Count, or El Conde. We don't know who the lead actor in it is. We see the cast, but we don't know who is playing the lead actor. It's a dark comedy about the dictator of Chile. It follows his character if Pinochet was a vampire, who lived to be 250 years old, who decides that it's his time to die now. It sounds like it's going to be huge with critics. It sounds like it's going to play Venice, could win the Golden Lion at Venice. I think it's going to be hugely critically acclaimed, and whoever's playing Pinochet, they could get a nomination.
They could. I guess my one hesitance there would be is for international acting performances again, and they normally already have to be a name, because we've seen like with Parasite or Drive My Car, you can be a very big picture contender, but you still don't find your way into the conversation.
Counterpoint, Yalitza Aparicio.
Fair enough. Good point.
I think that the actor who's playing him is like very well respected in Chile. Again, there's a cast list, but it doesn't say who's playing who.
Once again, everyone out there, drop your bold predictions. But until next time, my name is Dyl.
And my name is Matt, and this is Fantasy Filmball.